This work of fiction is intended for mature audiences. It contains themes of psychological horror and violence presented in a restrained manner. All characters and events are entirely fictional. The narrative is not intended to glorify or encourage harmful behavior.
I remember the stench of that railway cattle car as if it was seared into my soul. My brother Isaac and I, both barely 18 at the time, were torn from the world we once knew. In the early 1940s, as young Jews confronting an era of cruelty, we were forcibly separated from our family and herded into a cramped railcar destined for a nameless concentration camp in Germany. The metallic scent of fear mingled with the cold, damp air, and every jolt of the train deepened our sense of dread. Inside that oppressive railcar, our silenced prayers and desperate hopes were muffled by the heavy roar of the engine. Isaac's wide, anxious eyes spoke of dreams left unfulfilled, while I clutched him in a silent vow of brotherhood. The landscape outside blurred into a dark canvas of despair, each passing mile a harbinger of the horrors to come. When the train finally halted at a bleak station, a well-used gateway to unspeakable suffering, uniformed soldiers, their faces void of compassion, forced us from the railway cars like cattle led to slaughter. In that moment of crushing isolation, fate intervened in a way none of us could have fathomed. Amid the grim procession, a solitary figure emerged from the swirling mist, a woman whose presence defied the horror surrounding us. Clad in very elegant, aristocratic attire, Miss Nadja Blutkuss exuded a strange, almost hypnotic allure as she glided towards us. Her golden hair shimmered in the feeble light, and her steely sky-blue eyes, cold yet unnervingly inviting, surveyed our trembling forms. With a calm authority, she began a matter-of-fact surreal transaction. A German officer, his face as inscrutable as the circumstances, relinquished our fate into her hands for a few Reichsmarks from this mysterious woman. Under the watchful gaze of armed guards, we were led away from that station of desolation and onto a path that promised a destiny beyond our darkest imaginings. We arrived at a secluded estate, a sprawling mansion that loomed like a relic of a forgotten age. Though our wrists were bound with coarse rope and our movements stifled by fear, I sensed that our lives were about to be forever altered. That night, as the cold stone walls of our temporary prison closed in around us, I knew with an almost absolute certainty that our fates were sealed. The oppressive silence of our cell was broken only by the rhythmic sound of our shallow breaths and the distant creaks of ancient wooden flooring. Isaac and I sat side by side on the cold, damp stone floor, each second stretching into an eternity as we awaited our uncertain fate. The dim light of a solitary candle cast long quivering shadows along the walls, and with every flicker, the oppressive dread seemed to grow more horrific. It was in that haunted hour that Nadja returned. Her approach was measured, deliberate and graceful, each step effortless, as though she were gliding rather than walking. The soft rustle of her silken rouge, red gown accompanied her, and her eyes glimmered with a light that was both alluring and evil. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, hypnotic, a blend of seduction and bad intent that sent shivers down my spine. "I bring you an offer," she said, her words deliberately chosen and laced with promises that defied our human understanding. An escape from the mortal coil, an otherworldly transformation that will grant you power beyond your wildest imaginings. Before we could muster a plea or even protest, additional guards arrived. They tightened our bonds, their movements mechanical and unfeeling. In that suffocating moment of powerlessness, Nadja moved closer. I still recall the chill that raced along my neck as she leaned in, her pale lips parting just enough to reveal elongated, gleaming fangs. In one fluid, almost ritualistic motion, she sank those fangs into my neck. I felt a cold, precise pressure, an intrusion that was at once excruciating and slowly transformative. Isaac, a moment later, experienced a similar, shattering moment of violation as his own neck was marked by her bite, The sensation was not merely physical, it was as if an invisible chain was wrapping around our very souls. Pain and a strange euphoria intermingled, and as darkness crept in, I sensed the boundaries of our former selves crumbling away. That long, endless night became the threshold between a past familiar world of despair and a new, night-bound foreboding existence. Even as our vision faded into oblivion, a silent vow was etched into my heart. We would one day seek vengeance against the one who had stolen our innocence and condemned us to an eternity of darkness. I awoke to a world both totally alien and achingly familiar. The remnants of the previous night's torment had given way to an overwhelming sense of renewal, a rebirth that left me trembling with both terror and a newfound strength. I was no longer the frightened youth who had once cowered in darkness. Instead, I felt reborn, transformed into a creature of the night with senses heightened beyond human imagination. Beside me, Isaac stood, his eyes now burning with a resolute hunter's gleam that spoke of both loss and a fierce predatory determination. The transformation was not tender. It had come with a burning intensity that set every molecule aflame, a violent surge of power that rewrote the very essence of our beings. My skin still tinged with the faint memory of Nadia's bite, those subtle scars, a permanent reminder of that fateful night. Each cut throbbed with memories of anguish and the bittersweet taste of blood, rebirthing our new reality into flesh and soul. In the early hours of that cursed night, while the world around us slumbered, Isaac and I exchanged a silent vow. Nadia had irrevocably changed our lives, and with that alteration came a singular purpose: vengeance. Our hearts, heavy with the grief of lost innocence and burdened by the weight of our new transformation, beat with a fierce, unyielding determination. We resolved to track down the enigmatic woman who had condemned us to this eternal twilight and force her to answer for the lives she had stolen. In the days that followed, our senses adapted rapidly to our new existence. I could perceive every heartbeat in the darkness, every distant whisper carried by the wind, a haunting symphony of life and death. Isaac, ever the better athlete of us two, embraced the shadows with an almost predatory grace. We learned to move silently among mortals, blending into a world that was now utterly alien to us. Yet, even as we explored the boundaries of our cursed immortality, every moment was underscored by a searing anguish, a reminder of the irreversible price we had paid. Each night as I lay awake, memories of that terrifying transformation haunted me. The image of Nadia's cold, calculating eyes and the softness of her hypnotic words would surge uninvited, a nightmare that refused to fade with the dawn. But in the midst of that perpetual torment, our shared resolve shone like a beacon in our dark nights. We began a relentless quest, following the smallest clue or fragmented rumour that might lead us to the elusive figure of Nadia Blutkuss. Our journey would span years, our hunt as eternal as our new existence. The passage of time proved to be both a curse and a strange kind of mercy. Years melted away like mist under a harsh sunrise, and Isaac and I wandered through eras that witnessed empires rise and fall. We moved silently through bustling cities and desolate ruins, our true natures hidden beneath the facade of ordinary mortal men. In every situation we adapted, shedding identities like worn-out clothing and adopting new personas to avoid the prying eyes of those who might understand our dark origin. Our pursuit of Nadia became the singular focus of our immortal lives. Over the years, we learned to decipher subtle omens, a half-whispered legend in an ancient text, the furtive glances of those who knew too much. Every clue pointed toward the elusive vampiress, whose presence stretched across the decades like a malignant shadow. Her name, Nadia Blutkuss, became both a curse and a beacon in our endless nights. We learned that her influence was woven into the fabric of time itself, and every era seemed to carry the faint, lingering stench of her presence. Despite the isolation and despair that often accompanied our nocturnal wanderings, Our brotherly bond was the one constant that anchored us to our fading humanity. In moments of rare respite, when the relentless hunger and the burden of centuries threatened to overwhelm us, Isaac and I would reminisce about our lost youth, about a time when hope had not yet been extinguished. Yet, even as nostalgia surfaced, our hearts steeled themselves for the relentless hunt. Every night, as we traversed rain-slicked alleyways and desolate graveyards, our determination grew. Nadja had left an indelible mark on our souls, and we were resolute in our quest for retribution at any cost. One particularly bitter winter, as snow fell in silent, like ghostly drifts across a forgotten European village, a new lead emerged. An old manuscript, its pages brittle with age, mentioned a mysterious sanctuary in a remote region, a sanctuary that might have once served as Nadja's forgotten home. The manuscript was written in cryptic verse and filled with ominous warnings of an ancient curse. For weeks, Isaac and I pored over its faded lines, the cold wind outside wailing our grim determination. Every detail, every twisted phrase, hinted that the path to our nemesis was winding through the labyrinth of time itself. As the endless years turned inexorably into over 8 decades of ceaseless wandering, our hunt took on an almost mythic quality. We encountered others of our kind, lost souls who had strayed from the path of rebirth and succumbed to the darker temptations of immortality. In those fleeting encounters, I witnessed the stark contrasts of our curse, the unrelenting thirst for vengeance pitted against an overwhelming loneliness, the brutal necessity of survival set against the desperate clinging to what remained of our humanity, and yet through it all, one thought burned clear and bright. Nadja must be found, and she must answer for the night she stole our lives. Finally, after 85 long years of ceaseless pursuit and clandestine investigations, the scattered pieces of an ancient puzzle began to form a coherent narrative. Whispers in hushed taverns, secret letters exchanged among scholars of the occult, and subtle hints in old diaries all pointed toward a derelict estate in Transylvania, Virginia. This remote, isolated place, its name itself a grisly reminder of Gothic lore, seemed to be the final refuge of the one who had damned us. With renewed vigour, Isaac and I prepared to confront the darkness that had haunted us for nearly all our lives. Under the eerie light of a waning full moon, Isaac and I approached the crumbling estate in Transylvania, Virginia. The mansion, though ravaged by time, stood as a grim monument to lost grandeur. Its ivy-clad walls and broken pillars exuded a forlorn dignity, and every shadow seemed imbued with memories of past horrors. We had spent countless nights designing our trap, a lethal blend of ancient lore and modern ingenuity, and now every painstaking detail was in place. The estate had been transformed into a veritable fortress of dread. Hidden passages and secret panels lay in wait, concealing wooden stakes meticulously sharpened and reinforced with ritual significance, alongside silver projectiles fashioned to pierce the veil of the supernatural vampiress. As I moved cautiously through the silent halls, each step resonated with the accumulated grief and fury of decades spent in this dark pursuit. Every creak of the ancient floorboards and every rustle of demonic drapery served as a grim reminder of the life that had been stolen from us. In the midst of the oppressive silence, I could almost taste the tension, a palpable mix of fear and anticipation that charged the very air. Isaac positioned himself amid the overgrown gardens and crumbling archways outside, his eyes scanning the blackened sky with unwavering focus. I advanced into the heart of the mansion, my senses straining to catch any hint of movement. The oppressive atmosphere seemed to close in around me, every shadow concealing potential attack. Then, as if summoned by the collective weight of our sorrow and rage, she appeared. Emerging from the depths of the mansion's darkest recesses, Nadja Blutkuss materialized like a spirit of her former allure. Time had not diminished her beauty. Rather, it had sharpened the cold precision of her gaze. Her eyes, as piercing as ever, locked onto mine with an unsettling mix of recognition, allure, and disdain. "Abraham," she uttered, her voice both seductive and sinister, a blend of regret and menace that sent icy shivers down my spine. "I have sensed your relentless pursuit across the ages, and now, at long last, we meet again, with your brother by your side, as always." I stepped forward, my voice steadied by years of unyielding resolve. "Nadja, your time of terror ends tonight." Isaac's silent presence beside me was a living testament to our shared oath, a promise forged in blood and unending night. What followed was a nightmarish ballet of light and shadow, a brutal dance in which every movement carried the weight of 5 lost years. Nadja moved with an otherworldly grace, each step calculated, and every gesture executed with lethal intent. We clashed in the dim rooms, our renewed forms locked in a deadly embrace where the boundaries between life and death were measured with our lethal intent. As the confrontation reached its fevered pitch, the carefully laid mechanisms of our trap were triggered. From hidden recesses in the ancient walls, stakes and silver projectiles sprang forth like heroic daggers. In that moment, the air was ripe with the sound of clashing wills, a symphony of revenge that reverberated through the halls. Nadja staggered as the weapons found their mark, her otherworldly composure shattering under the combined force of our vengeance and resolve. I recall with vivid clarity the desperate struggle that ensued, a violent interplay of survival and retribution. Every clash, every parry was punctuated by memories of our stolen past and the promise of justice that had driven us through decades of isolation. Isaac fought at my side with a determination that belied the decades etched into his immortal eyes. Together we wove a tapestry of unbridled fury and despair, a final stand against an enemy that had haunted us for far too long. In the final harrowing moments of the battle, as the mechanisms of our trap rendered her defences futile, I found myself face to face with the vampiress who had rewritten our destinies. Her once impeccable facade of cold superiority crumbled beneath the relentless barrage. The impact of our well-planned assault sent her reeling into a spiral of pain and shocking disbelief, and as she sank to the cold, dust-laden floor of the estate, a heavy silence fell upon the chamber. For a long, agonizing moment, time itself seemed to pause. The oppressive darkness that had followed us through the ages was suddenly pierced by a bitter, almost cathartic clarity. Isaac and I exchanged a look, a silent acknowledgement of the pain, the loss, and the bitter triumph of having reclaimed even a small measure of the lives stolen from us. Yet even as Nadja's lifeblood seeped slowly into the ancient stone floor, a final, dissonant whisper escaped her lips, a promise that the terror would never truly end. The night, though seemingly dispelled by our final act of retribution, held within it echoes of all the years of torment. In that hushed aftermath, as the first tentative rays of dawn crept through shattered windows, the weight of our immortal curse pressed down upon us with renewed ferocity. In the silence that followed, as I knelt beside Nadja's motionless body, a maelstrom of conflicting emotions surged within me. The anguish of decades intermingled with a fleeting, unutterable relief, an acknowledgement that while we had vanquished one nightmare of our past, the curse of our existence would forever haunt the endless twilight of our souls. Even now, as I pen these memories with lifeless hands, I carry with me the indelible scars of that final night. The mansion, the estate, and the lingering shadows of Transylvania stand as grim monuments to the endless years of suffering, the relentless pursuit of vengeance, and the inescapable cost of immortality. Though Nadja's reign of terror has met its end, the memory of her malignant influence is permanently etched into every corner of my existence, Isaac and I remain bound, not only by blood, but by the shared burden of an eternal night. A night that, despite our triumph, continues to remind us of what has been irrevocably lost. As I step away from that haunted place, leaving behind the ruins of the final battle, I know that our journey is far from over. The darkness within us is both a curse and a constant reminder of the price of revenge. Every step I take reverberates with the promise of our shared past and the relentless quest for meaning in a life defined by loss. Though the first light of dawn now touches the horizon, it does little to dispel the shadows that have claimed our souls. We are forever wanderers, condemned to traverse the fringe spaces between memory and oblivion, forever chasing the phantom dreams of what might have been. In that final, bitter moment in Transylvania, amid the ruin and the silence, I understood that true redemption was not found in the extinguishing of a single evil entity, but in the eternal struggle against the darkness that dwells within all of us. Isaac's steadfast gaze meeting mine in the cold crypt of the cellar reminded me that our bond was our only true salvation, a beacon of hope in a world shrouded by endless night. And so, as I close this chapter of my memoir, I carry with me the painful beauty of our long, relentless odyssey. I am Abraham, and though the curse of immortality binds me to a destiny steeped in sorrow and horror, I continue to walk the path of remembrance and brotherhood. Our story, a saga of abduction, transformation, and unyielding retribution, serves as a testament to the enduring power of family and the indomitable human spirit, even when encased in the eternal twilight of damnation. In the end, as the shadows recede and the dawn claims the remnants of night, the true horror remains not in the monstrous deeds of others, but in the quiet, unending battle within ourselves. This is my truth, a narrative of pain, transformation, and the relentless pursuit of justice. And though the horrors I have witnessed and endured may forever haunt the recesses of my mind, I have learned that even amid the deepest despair, there is a sliver of hope, a promise that the darkness, however pervasive, can someday be met with the light of resolve and the unbreakable bond of blood brothers. Isaac and I continue to navigate the endless night, haunted by memories and driven by a vow that no evil shall remain unchallenged. Though our path is steeped in grief and the bitter taste of loss, it is also illuminated by the fierce determination to reclaim even a fragment of the humanity that was so brutally taken from us.
Hello, my Nightmare Obsession fans. We hope you loved this story and were almost frightened to death, left wanting even more. If so, please share video and our channel link with friends and family and ask them to subscribe, like, comment, and share with their friends and family too. We really want to create more nightmarish horror stories for you, so please be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel now. We would really appreciate it. Thanks so much.